Hi, it's Shan Wu with a undercolor of law take on autopens. Yes, President Trump is now raising a new argument against Joe Biden. He seems to have a need to keep on arguing against former President Biden, that there's something improper about how Biden was using autopens and that it may invalidate a whole series of pardons in particular that Biden gave. So here's Trump's Truth Social post. We'll put it up for you, even though I hate putting up Truth Social posts, but it gives you the context for what we're talking about. And I'll read it to you. The pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact they were done by autopen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Therefore, those on the Unselect Committee who destroyed and deleted all evidence obtained during their 2-year witch hunt. Actually, I'm going to stop reading. It's too painful to continue to read that. We'll leave it up there. You get the point. So, first of all, let's just note that on his own social media platform, he's only got 72.8 likes. Kind of sad, actually. Most cat photos seem to do better than that. So first of all, he doesn't even reference correctly what pardons he's actually talking about, right? I mean, we understand Truth Social is not an official government document. But, you know, when you talk in slang and joke terms about everything, it really has a problem, right? He's referring to the unselect committee of thugs. Well, you know, what people are you talking about there? I mean, why don't you try naming the people who you think, you know, got bad pardons? But what he's trying to talk about is a couple of things. He wants to say that it's somehow invalid to use an autopen to have signed some sort of presidential document, in this case, pardons. And of course, he also wants to further question the cognitive state of President Biden. So the first thing is, I guess he really wants DOJ to spend a lot of time being able to bring cases against all these people like Fauci, Liz Cheney, cases that are not only completely baseless, but they would drag on for years. If he got his sort of lackeys at DOJ, Pam Bondi, just to charge them, open investigation, that's going to take forever to do. If they actually get someplace with it, then it's going to be contested, litigated. It's going to take years, last well past his term. Part of me says, yeah, great, knock yourself out. Spend all your time doing that kind of things. All right, but that's just seems to be what he wants to have happen. He thinks if he gets rid of pardons, that somehow would allow his DOJ to move forward with investigations. Even that is extremely illogical. Frankly, his DOJ will do anything he asks them to do. They don't care that there is a pardon, but nonetheless, he's raised this. So let's look at the sort of very shaky legal grounds it stands on. First of all, the autopen, right? Autopen has been around since Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson, who liked gadgets, right? So he was among the first early adopter of the technology. I think he liked to use it so he could get out a lot of correspondence at once. Now, the legality is really a pointless thing to talk about here because despite a lot of blustery rhetoric from the MAGA world who says they're going to investigate it, the group that's investigating is an arm of Project 2025. Remember, Project 2025 gave the blueprint for the presidency that Trump said he didn't know anything about it, even though now they're implementing the blueprint like down to a T. Well, this group claims to have investigated this issue of how the autopen was used, and what they're claiming is that they supposedly have done a very careful, comprehensive review of, quote, every document we could find. Don't know what that means. And that their point is whoever controlled the autopen controlled the presidency, and they want to get to the bottom of that. So, first of all, pretty baseless point, because George W. Bush in Bush 1 got an opinion from DOJ that says that the president's use of autopen is perfectly fine. And no, it's not in the Constitution because they didn't have autopens then, much less digitized signatures that are so commonly used today. And let's use a little logic. A digitized signature is not the same as an autopen, but obviously, conceptually, we should think about this. So there's something called the Electronic Signatures and Global and National Commerce Act, e-sign, and the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act, UETA. It's valid in every state, plus DC, and these are fully legally binding transactions, even though they're obviously not so-called wet signatures by people. We all use them all the time for our gym memberships, maybe the cable bill auto pay, also government checks, facsimile signatures, Secretary of the Treasurer. Think about Trump's stunt with his COVID checks and where he insisted they got with his signature rather than the Treasury Secretary's signature. So maybe if he didn't sign the 476 million checks that went out, they should all be invalidated at this point. So obviously in this age of digital work, digital signatures, the idea that there's something off with the auto pen doesn't really make any sense at all. Now, personally, I can be kind of radical. I'm all for let's get rid of digital signatures. Let's make everybody do things in actual paper checks. Be a disaster for the economy. But hey, if you're talking about government efficiency, that would be one way to cut down on some of the waste, duplication. Let's do everything in original, actual paper forms, right? It never happened. It's a pointless idea on Trump's part here. Second legal point. Are the pardons somehow invalidated if it was signed by autopen? No, that's totally wrong, because there's not even a requirement that pardons be in writing, as some constitutional scholars have pointed out about that. It's simply a power of the pardon, and it's not even clear when you could have the secret pardon. Remember, we used to talk about, does somebody have like a pardon in their hip pocket kind of. There does seem to be a requirement that the person receiving the pardon has to accept it. But when they accept it, I mean, you could perhaps keep it secret and then you only, pull it out when you're being charged or investigated. So the idea that there's something about the pardon needs to be reduced to writing, much less the original wet signature, is just nonsense. I mean, the president is given the ability to grant the clemency, to be granting pardons, and it's got nothing to do with whether it's issued in writing or not. As Jay Wexler, a professor of constitutional law who quoted, he's at Boston University, says it's a non-starter and a distraction because there's simply nothing in the Constitution about it. So that aspect of it is void. Now let's get to another, arguably legal point, but it's really something about Biden living in Trump's mind, which is the cognitive state of Biden. This one is really pointless because if you tried to pursue it, if the MAGA people want to pursue it, Trump wants to pursue it, they would have to be able to gather witnesses for evidence that Biden was unaware he had granted pardons or that he was completely mentally unfit in his term. So first question is, how are you going to get this kind of evidence or testimony? They don't have any ability to compel it. They'd need some kind of subpoena power. Maybe they get, some bogus congressional committee to seek subpoena power. People will fight that. Executive privilege, remember? That alone will take years to fight to even get some of that testimony. Second, even if they magically got some kind of information that seemed to suggest, wow, maybe Biden actually didn't know that he pardoned his son, what would the mechanism be for undoing the pardon, even undoing legislation? Doesn't exist. There is no such mechanism. They'd have to invent it, start from scratch to come up with some legal theory to retroactively get rid of these things on the other legal theory that the president didn't have the cognitive ability to know what he was doing at the time. This is really just Trump is perpetually stuck on Biden's fitness, both physical as well as mental. Kind of lives in Trump's head every day, maybe because Biden beat him, and he's not able to get back at him for doing that. Or he's just kind of himself mentally stuck where he's perpetually running against Joe Biden. Remember when he used to make mistakes thinking that he was actually running against Biden instead of Kamala Harris? Real point here is there's no retroactive application of the 25th Amendment. This is over and done with, and it's really going no place at all. So while it's kind of a fun thing for the media to pursue, nice talking point for MAGA people to distract from the problems they're having with these multiple losses in courts about their unconstitutional actions, it's just that. It's completely bogus distraction. So if you hear anybody talking about that, you can just totally dismiss it because, let's ban autopens. Okay, you could. Let's have legislation. Can't use autopens anymore. Is that going to be retroactive to everything that's been done with an autopen, everything that's been done with digital signatures? No, it's just laughable. However, lastly, I have to add this point. As always, Trump is the best bet for testifying against himself, as after lambasting Biden for the use of the autopen, he now, of course, admits to using it himself. That's perfect. And also, I also want to point out that in the Daily Mail analysis of this, the way they're looking at this is they're looking at signatures to see if they're really identical to each other, because that suggests they're electronic signatures. And they found at least 25, in Trump's first term that look like that. In fact, the National Archives is engaged in digitizing signatures. So again, this whole issue about whether it's okay to have some kind of digital signature, some sort of autopen, is really bogus. There is one legal scholar, and we'll put up the link for you, which has made kind of a big deal out of the use of the autopen. He's afraid of fraud, basically. And he's also pointing out that at the time that the Constitution was put in place, the idea of the president's signature power rested on the president being there in person. So, maybe you could delegate someone to even sign it for you, but the president has to be there in person. That's kind of like the only type of legal scholarship that I've noticed about this. And I would take that with not a grain of salt, but it's sort of a notion that has long passed. We're in the age of digitization, and all of this is just a distraction. So we won't be distracted. Lots of actual issues to pay attention to, but a lot of this smoke and mirror stuff is going to come up, so we'll keep on parsing it through for you. So that's it for now. Good to talk to you, and keep those comments and replies coming, and we'll talk to you soon.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.